Jackie's sister Ursula finally spoke. I wouldn't judge you if you got rid of it like the old timers. Jackie's heart skipped a beat, eyes darting across the room and back again. The room went silent once more. The lot of them might as well have been listening to the blood flowing through their ears. Jackie erupted in tears, and the women finally surrounded her as she lurched into shuddering sobs of grief and devastation. She had given birth to a freak of nature, a creature so vile it might as well have been straight out of a Ripley's Believe It or Not episode. Certainly it was more freak than human, and thus the lot of them knew sacrificing it would be justified. Ursula massaged Jackie's shoulders while her cousin Bernadine wiped her tears and made her way across the room to retrieve a bundle of white sage. They had all decided in silence what the lot of them would do, and to cement it, the doula went rummaging through her pack for a dose of hydrocodone and Ativan to ease Jackie's nerves. Jackie finally spoke. None of this can ever leave this room. As we report it, it was a miscarriage. I don't want anyone snooping around. I don't want the child to suffer. I want it to go quick. Ursula, who had forever maintained the stripe of darkness, piped right in, noting, we could put it in the freezer, set the temperature as low as possible, just like the old ones. They say it's painless in the end, and you just fall asleep. The room went quiet once more, the very idea macabre. Yet the reality of having to physically kill it instantly, even with a hot shot, simply was not by any means the course of action any of these women were willing to take. Ironically, the most bold and brazen of her sisters, Ursula, used to pull the hair of anyone who laid a hand on her sister Jackie. She once knocked out a man at a basketball game in front of 50 people by headbutting him after he groped Jackie in a crowded line heading into the gym. Jackie finally broke the silence, set the temperature on the freezer, and helped me gather all the baby supplies. I want to have a bonfire. We will wrap him and leave him be, knowing it ends peacefully when the body shudders no more. Brings comfort. I cannot bring myself to bury it alive nor float it down the river. I'll go gather some wood for the fire, piped Ursula. Bernadine placed a cup of strong kava tea in front of Jackie, who thanked her, lighting a Salem. Christ, it feels good to smoke again. I'll tell you that much. Jesus fucking hell, have I needed a cigarette. All the women finally laughed, but the doula, Mandy, who had only been back in the village for 3 years. She worked as a social service worker in Seattle, Washington, helping folks on the street get cleaned up. She arrived in the village and had struggles at first, trying to readapt to the climate of her youth. In truth, she was rusty. She was gone too long and never had an elder in her life explain to her or take the time to read a book about the old ones who would slide into the Arctic night naked and walk out and away from the village as to lay down on the frozen earth and die and rid the young of their burden. Jackie's grandfather, a shaman, was found many times lying naked in a kanichuk, trying to commit suicide, despite the church finally thinking they had converted him. In the end, he followed the heartbeat of the Creator, not some stark, brutal God used to control the bovine masses of Christian nationals and Baptists lurching with rattlesnakes, wild rides with televangelists, motor mouthing the farce of the voice of the Lord who comes to them in the night. Much in the local church spoke of sin. Sin was used as a method of control, as well as filling the collection plate. The memories washed through Jackie's mind, hell being used to terrify and brainwash them for life. Sick, sad cycle, which in the end had eaten away at many ancient practices and a people's entire language. Gone like an American flag on a crab boat in the Bering Sea, a metaphor for the void of American identity and how it correlates to damn near absolutely nothing in most villages in the Northwest Arctic. The youth watching westerns and deserts they would never see, with men in strange hats and half-naked Italians wielding bows and arrows and riding horses. Hours had passed and the women were gathered around the fire. They were passing a bottle, smoking cigarettes. Mandy seemed distant despite having taken many shots. The women ignored it, but they all felt it. Almost telepathically, all the women knew she, by far, the Seattle girl, was a complete threat to the nature of this act. None of them wanted to be liable. Ursula had dug a pit with the use of an axe on the permafrost to place the child. She had gone as deep as she could possibly get. They would give it another 2 hours before the burial. They tried to drink to forget, to laugh, but they all knew in their heart of hearts that they were in pain and affected by such a strange creature. The last thing a lot of them wanted was the feds sticking around in villages where they never belonged in the first place. The mine had brought enough disruption to salmon returns, which were now so low fishing for them was illegal. Finally, a market had been created in Kotzebue with a she-fish processing plant, who had signed a contract with the Japanese processor. She-fish sales had taken off in Japan, after many creatures once plentiful had become scarce, thus a further reach to abstain their own attention to quality and rarity. They yearly bought up nearly 90% of Jamaica's infamous Blue Mountain coffee. This was not the first child born in the region with defects since the operation of Apex had began, yet it was surely the most odd and terrifying. Elements which had immersed Jackie's mind like a chainsaw, ruminating in rapid cycling like a bat out of hell. She piped up, "I'm ready." Suddenly the sound of the fire seemed to roar over the power of Inupiaq silence. She rose, making her way toward the cabin. The women gathered around the porch as Jackie exited, carrying the creature wrapped in furs, rock solid and lifeless. They gathered around the grave as she placed it into the pit emotionlessly. To think she had nearly given birth at the native hospital in Anchorage, yet had been talked out of it by Mandy, who had convinced her there was no need with her experience in home-based holistic birth.